It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me this morning. We are in the studio taking calls today. The number here is 843-556-1250, 556-1250. And it's been a little while, but I am joined by Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage this morning. We're going to talk about the mortgage market. Bill, how are you this morning?
Great, Brian. Good morning. Thanks for having me back on.
My pleasure. So we're going to talk about the mortgage market. There's been some information to come out that I want to focus on and harp on for a little bit so that you, as a listener, have a clear understanding of what this means for you and the real estate market in general. A little bit later on, we're going to talk about if your home isn't selling, if it's been on the market, let's say 90 days or more, what do we need to do to get that sucker sold? So we're going to talk about that. And then a little bit later on in the program, we're going to talk about something that I thought kind of a little bit interesting for me. I was approached by a real estate agent in a different market to potentially invest in a property, to buy it and flip it. And I want to tell you that story. And our conversation got to the point where I was asking him some questions about him as a listing agent. So I started thinking to myself, if I were to hire somebody to sell my property, of course, me being an agent that's been in the top 1% of agents here for the past 6 years, what would my expectations be of that real estate agent? And I came up with a list, got a top 10 list that I want to share with you. And I'm going to harp on each one of those bullet points because it's not really something that I've thought about. I've always just kind of shared my experiences on this show as somebody that's been in real estate for several years, sold hundreds of homes. And of course, if you've listened to this program in the past, you know that I like to share market data. I like to tell you what's going on, and I like to set realistic expectations so that if you're considering buying, selling, investing in real estate, you have some good factual information to go off of, and we can make some informed decisions together. Speaking of which, if you are interested in buying, selling, investing in real estate, I cover the Tri-County area here in Charleston. Would love an opportunity to speak with you about your home or your interest in purchasing a home. I can be reached at 843-345-1273 or by going to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can take a look at everything that I have for sale, see all my listings, see everything I've sold, see every listing for sale by every agent and every company in our MLS. And then if you're considering selling your home, click on the Sell Your Home tab, and you can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee, which would be at 4.5% commission. Basically, I'll sell your home in 59 days or less, or I'll sell it for half my commission. So again, listingsincharleston.com is the website for that. So Bill, I want to talk about this first because it's some pretty good news, actually. Federal Reserve came out with some information that directly impacts interest rates and wanted to have you reflect on that this morning.
Sure. Well, first of all, happy birthday this week to Brian. And also official congratulations on the air to Brian and Julie for their first child, Ellie.
Oh, thanks a lot.
So congratulations there. All right, so the Fed came out last Wednesday with a very big and highly anticipated announcement. People were wondering, and it seemed to be like a flip of a coin, if they were going to announce that they were going to stop holding the federal funds rate down near zero like they've been doing since 2008, which holds down all interest rates, including mortgage rates. Well, they came out and they said they kept this term a considerable time. They'll be holding down the Fed funds rate for a considerable time, which means they did not tell everyone when they're going to stop. But what they did do is they announced that they're going to stop the quantitative easing, which is the bond buying program that the government has been spending billions upon billions of dollars a month, which helps hold the treasuries down. So right now, they're spending $15 billion a month, and they said that they will stop the bond buying program in October of this year. And we've all seen that coming. We all knew it was coming. 8 months ago, the government was still spending $80 billion a month, keeping the treasuries down, keeping investors wanting to invest in these very secure investment platforms like treasury notes. Well, now that quantitative easing is over, that means that the government feels investors are going to be more and more enticed to move it back into the market, into more higher risk investments. That last time that the government said they were going to back off of the bond buying program, rates jumped. Everybody kind of got scared.
Yep.
Now, quantitative easing is about to be over, and when they made that announcement, there was really no shift in rates at all. Everybody was more focused on the Fed funds rate that the government's been holding down near zero, which a lot of people think about prime. What's prime right now? So what's a prime interest rate? Well, prime right now has been around 3 to 3.25, and that's pretty much as low as you get. Prime. When the Fed funds rate is at 0, prime's going to be around 3. You're going to see pretty much no interest gained in things like checking accounts. Right now, you would get nothing. You basically get nothing in your checking account, nothing in your savings account as far as interest goes.
It's like 0.7, 0.8%.
Well, back in the late 80s, they'd be advertising 9% interest in your checking account because inflation was going through the roof. Well, considerable time meant that rates didn't jump. They actually went down a little bit in the last week and a half, and they are expected to hold for at least the first, probably the second quarter of 2015. But from everything that I'm reading, all the experts seem to believe that a considerable time means by the third quarter of 2015, the government's going to feel like everything is safe, and they're going to allow for the federal funds rate to climb, which means interest rates will climb.
Right. So we're looking at potentially 9, maybe 12 months before we start to see that increase in interest rates based on what the experts are saying right now.
Correct.
Okay. Very interesting. I'm talking with Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. We are taking calls this morning. If you'd like to ask him some questions about this, feel free to call in 843-556-1250. And so just kind of a layman's recap on everything that you just said, because what you said I understand, but there might be some people out there that don't understand things like prime and all the things that we discussed. So to summarize, it sounds like the government is going to continue to play a part in holding down interest rates at very affordable levels, which is going to, of course, keep housing affordable. The only thing that we need to potentially worry about is a large increase in pricing on homes. And frankly, I don't see that happening. I don't see there being a huge jump in pricing on residential real estate over the next 12 months. I think that we've seen a very nice upward swing in pricing over the past 12 to 18 months in the Tri-County area, at least. And I think there are still several areas that are going to see double-digit increases in pricing. It's all a matter of supply and demand and what the buyers are looking for. And we've seen a big jump in the $350,000 and above price range in terms of sales and increase in pricing and things like that. But you also have to remember that that was the market that was hit the hardest when everything kind of crashed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. I have a house on the Isle of Palms that I am marketing for sale, and you know that I do international marketing. Mm-hmm. Well, I found a buyer in Germany, of all places, that is selling her home, she's selling her business, and she's moving to Charleston, but she's not going to do it for the next 2 years or so. So she wants to buy the property now and just use it, what it's being used for right now, which is a weekly vacation rental. She has U.S. citizenship, but in presenting the offer and in speaking with some people, we found out that she doesn't have the debt to income ratio to be able to afford the home and also afford the debt on her primary residence and her business. So she tried to pull in someone else that she knows from Germany to be a co-borrower, basically a non-occupant co-borrower, think of what you call it. The issue there is that he doesn't have citizenship. And so my question for you, and this is kind of a complicated setup, but my question for you is when you're dealing with international buyers, is the approach to lending them money, getting a mortgage, any different than if they were a U.S. citizen? In other words, can you get a mortgage if you're not a U.S. citizen?
No. Well, you can if you're not a U.S. citizen, but you have to have a valid work visa.
Okay.
A social security number, a green card. You have to be living in the United States to get a U.S. mortgage. It's one of the disclosure questions that is asked on every single mortgage. Are you a U.S. citizen? And you have to have a valid work visa in order to, and basically be a permanent resident alien in order to get a mortgage.
And so this kind of leads me to a second question, which is this particular buyer that does have U.S. citizenship just wants to use that money as gift funds. Is that possible if that buyer is not a U.S. citizen, or does it matter?
The gift funds question is...
I guess explain gift funds in general, because I think a lot of people get confused. I think real estate agents mostly, because you've got FHA, where you can get a gift, and then you've got conventional, where you can also get a gift, but it has to be seasoned, right? It has to be in your account for 60 days or so. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Sure. So, to answer your first question, whether or not you can get gift funds from someone or money to help with your down payment is dependent on the relationship between you and that person. There has to be a relationship that would warrant someone getting a gift. It has to be a family member, a fiance. That would be what would exclude you from being able to get a gift rather than someone being from another country. The reason in your case, probably a non-occupant co-borrower means they were trying to go on the application as a co-borrower, and they just couldn't be on the application. But I would say that sourcing those funds would be okay. The gift funds, there's a couple of rules as far as when you can and cannot use gift funds, and there's actually a recent change in conventional financing. But with FHA loans, gift funds, 100% of your down payment can be from gift funds. That means that if you're buying a house, you don't have to have any savings to get into a home. All of your down payment, a 3.5% minimum down payment for an FHA loan, can be from a gift from family member. A spouse who maybe has bad credit and can't be on the loan could gift you money. A parent, a brother and sister, even an uncle. Good
old Uncle Charlie helped me buy my first house.
That's right. And you'd be surprised how many Uncle Charlies show up with a $30,000 gift to help someone buy a house. So now conventional lending, it used to be a hard line. You had to have 5% of your own money in order to get into a conventional loan. Now conventional fees and costs are much better than an FHA loan, and so if you had the savings, you wanted to go that route. Well, a recent change has allowed for people to get into a conventional loan with all of their down payment being a gift.
Interesting.
It just changed in the last 5-6 months, and only Fannie Mae is allowing for it. Freddie Mac does not. So it has to be a loan that goes to Fannie Mae. But you can if you have good credit, decent credit, that's not going to impact your interest rate too much, then I am encouraging every customer to find that 5% somewhere, get away from the very high cost of FHA mortgage insurance, and get into a conventional loan. That 5%, like needing to have that savings, was really a hard line in the past. And you touched on something called seasoning. And so that was actually a way that people would get around a gift, is because they knew they weren't allowed to have money coming from somewhere else or a family member to buy that house. So a lender would advise them, well, if you had the savings for 60 days, then it wouldn't be a gift anymore.
Then it's technically your money.
It would be your money.
Okay.
So they would get the gift, wait the 60 days, and then put an application in. So the mortgage company never knew where the money came from because it was seasoned. Gotcha.
We're talking with Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. We're going to take a break. And when I come back, I want to ask you a few questions about how credit affects interest rates and a few other questions. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Thanks again for joining me this morning. I am joined in the studio by Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage this morning, and we're taking your calls. So anything we can do to help, anything we can do to share some information with you, answer your questions. The number here in the studio, 843-556-1250. 843-556-1250. If you'd like to reach out to me personally, if you have a question, comment, concern, you're considering buying, selling, investing in real estate, feel free to call me personally. My number is 843-345-1273. You can also go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And on that website, you can take a look at everything I have for sale, everything I've sold, read some testimonials from past clients, and you can also learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. Basically, I'll sell your home in 59 days or less, or I'll reduce my commission by 50%. Listingsincharleston.com is the website for that. Bill, you and I were talking over the break about just how crazy of a week this past week was. I was tallying it up. We had 9 contracts this week, my team and I. So it was just a crazy week, and included in that 9 was a closing that I've been working on for months that you ended up getting involved in. And let me try and set the stage here, and of course not name any names, but we had a buyer make an offer on a property, and we got through the process. We were very close to our closing date, and we found out the buyer got denied for financing. So that sent everybody into a tizzy, trying to find a solution to this issue. The buyer had already canceled their plans and they had to find a place to live. So the seller actually let the buyer move in and rent the property while we're trying to find out a solution to having them find a mortgage, which, I'm never a fan of. I didn't want that to happen, but it happened, and we helped that family out, and so be it. So then we get the runaround from this buyer and their buyer agent about who they're talking to. I think over the course of a week, they talked to 5 or 6 different people. And then I finally said, look, talk with Bill. If there's anybody that can get this deal done, it's Bill. Talk to him and see what he can do. And so that's where then I'm going to introduce you and kind of explain the situation, of course, without giving out too much personal information, about how you were able to dissect that situation and help that person. And then what happened at the end, of course.
Sure. So I ended up being the 3rd or 4th lender cut in on the deal, and we were in the 2nd or 3rd extension of this contract, and the seller was obviously feeling that she had made a bad decision in letting this family move in to the house she was selling. And basically the problem with this was a self-employed borrower who didn't really understand his own income situation, and he thought this was going to be an easy road, and so he didn't give himself enough time. He didn't plan ahead, and he put in a offer on probably what was a very loose and unverified pre-qualification that came to you, which is the risk when you're a listing agent. You don't know how much that paper is worth when it gets on your desk,
right? And
the income situation was very tricky, but it's so important for the loan officer or the lender to fully dissect the scenario and present a case for that income to underwriting that makes sense. And when I heard the story, I quickly assessed that there was a way that this loan could be done. And we actually did get this loan approved in 2 or 3 days from the time that I first talked to the customer. And we were ready to close this deal in, I think, 4 days later. It was 6 business days, and I had one more piece of paper that I needed from a customer to close 2 days later. So it was going to be like a 9 or 10 day turnaround time to close this deal, and we were really up against the clock. Well, this buyer at this point was very, very nervous, and without telling me, he had gone off and found private money as well. So he spent my team's time, and we really hustled to make this deal happen for you and for the buyer. And then the day before closing, 2 days before closing, when I'm saying I need one more piece of paper, he kind of disappeared on me. And then he ended up causing a 4th or 5th delay because he decided not to close with me, and went with a private money, basically cash transaction.
Right, which ended up hurting him in the end because the interest rate was completely unfavorable. It was basically hard money is what it was.
Right.
And it's one of those situations where, I was the listing agent. I'm representing the seller. You were working with the buyer. So we are obviously very careful and professional and confidential in nature, that you're not going to tell me anything about the buyer that the buyer wouldn't want me to know, just like I'm not going to reveal information about my seller's position. But I did put a lot of pressure on that buyer and you to get that deal done, because we were in our fourth extension to the contract, and this thing had been dragging on and on and on. And here we are. We now have this buyer that's living in the house. We don't know if they can get financing or not. And ultimately it worked. But one of the things that really bugged me about that deal was that the buyer, somehow, some way, I don't even know how this happened, but the buyer found the seller's contact information. And so the buyer and the seller started communicating without the advice and counsel of their real estate agents, which really just muddied the water and led to some decisions made by both parties to the transaction that personally I was not a fan of, but we did the best we could with it, and ultimately it got done and we closed on it. But the takeaway for me in this story, and the reason why I'm even telling you this, is that there is so much importance put on the team that I surround myself with in this industry. And when I sent you that person's information, had that buyer not been kind of sketchy, then we would have gotten that deal done and you would have closed the loan and closed it. We could have had when it closed. Yeah. And, you know, in my mind, you're here already in that you were able to get it done and you had the clear to close, right? So, it's evidence to me that there are lenders out there that can do things that other lenders can't. And it's a direct result of the company you work for, the way in which they approach borrowers, and then your own specific skill set. Yes, and definitely. That's why you're a member of my team, is because we can take situations like this that are very difficult, and we can find a solution. And that's, in my opinion, one of the great things about being in this industry, is that we have the ability to look at each individual scenario and look at your goals and plan for it and get the job done. I mean, at the end of the day, we all want results. You want to buy the house, the seller wants to sell the house. You want to earn an origination fee, and I want to earn a commission. That's how everybody wins. My last question for you before we take a break, if you don't mind just giving me kind of like a 60-second answer, is how much does your credit score impact the interest rate? That's a very common question. There are, in the two major types of loans, FHA, VA, government loans, credit score does not have a huge impact. If you have a 680 credit score today, you could get an interest rate, 30-year fixed, of 3.75%. Wow. Your credit score all the way down to a 620, even a 605, the rate would only go up from a 3.75 to a 4%. So you're talking about a credit score in the very, very low 600s, almost no real significant change. Transition that to a conventional loan. Perfect credit. Now, perfect credit goes from being a 680 threshold to needing to be up above 740 is the ideal top tier credit. You could get 4.125 with no points today on a 30-year fixed. If your credit score was down in that same low level, the low 600s for a conventional loan, you'd be looking at an interest rate of 4.875 to 5%. So we're just under a full 1% in credit in a interest rate difference on a conventional loan. And that's really the number one reason why you would go away from a conventional loan into an FHA loan with these days, because the FHA fees are so expensive, is because of the credit score. We're talking with Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage, and the number here in the studio, because we are taking calls and we want to answer any questions you might have. The number here, 843-556-1250. One more question on that topic. Obviously, it's very important when we work with buyers to understand that they are pre-approved, that they have the ability to afford what they're looking at. It helps them come up with a price range to comfortably search within. It obviously gives us peace of mind that we're showing a client a property that they can pull the trigger on and actually afford. And so planning is so important, and speaking with a lender is so important, because there are plenty of cases, hundreds probably at this point in my career, where we've talked with a buyer, the buyer thinks they have great credit, and then we agree to work together, we check the credit, and then boom, there's something on there they had no idea existed, and it has had a major impact on their credit. So my question for you is, in those situations, what can buyers do to repair their credit? Well,
I'm actually just partnering with a credit recovery program locally. And I would say the number one thing is got to be plan ahead. Get your credit pulled early. Talk to a lender early. Call me. Talk to me early, because people have this fear. I don't want my credit pulled until the last second because my credit score is going to fall because you checked it. Well, a mortgage pull on your credit, 1 point on your score, maybe. And the number of times that I pull that credit report and someone who thinks they have great credit has a $48 medical bill that showed up on their report they had no idea about, and it's impacting their score by 50 points, they cost themselves thousands of dollars, potentially thousands of dollars on a real estate transaction because they didn't want to plan ahead. So let me pull your credit. Let me tell you about that $48 medical bill so you can go pay it. And then when you're ready to buy a house in 3 months, it's gone and your credit score is where it should be. Plan ahead. That's the answer, is plan ahead and let someone look at it and let someone help you plan for this home purchase. One of the biggest transactions you're going to do in your life.
Very good. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take some calls. The number here in the studio again, 843-556-1250. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker. Again, connect with me personally, 843-345-1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. We'll be right back.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 8 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back and good morning. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. I am joined in the studio by Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. We are taking your calls. The number here in the studio, 843-556-1250. And we did have a call that we had to, sorry, Clyde, we had to go to break and keep the sponsors happy, keep the radio station happy here. But Clyde from West Ashley had a question about the difference in interest rates between a residential purchase and a commercial purchase. Bill, I'm going to let you answer that.
Sure. Residential rates are very consistent across the board from one lender to the next. It's basically the same product over and over. With a commercial property, it is more specific to that individual bank, that individual lending institution. And so you're going to see massive differences in interest rates, all the way down from a 2% interest only to 15% 10-year term. So the terms really get controlled by the relationship, and it's not really on an individual federally regulated guidelines and position like a residential would be. Okay,
very good. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to kind of transition and talk for the remainder of the show about something that I was approached about. I was approached by a real estate agent from Charlotte, North Carolina. He sent me a referral for a listing. And we got to talking, and I'm not sure how we got on the topic, actually, but we were talking about investment properties, and we were talking about how I own several and how he owns several and how they're doing really well for us. And, he asked me, would you ever consider investing in Charlotte? So I told him a little bit about my investment criteria and what I would need in terms of a return on investment in order for that to make sense. I always kind of personally have a general rule of thumb that I don't invest in markets that I don't know anything about. So I asked him some questions about the acquisition of the investment. Typically how far below fair market value are you able to find the really good deals? And then when we go to sell them, tell me a little bit about your approach as a listing agent. And so here I am basically interviewing this listing agent, and it came full circle for me because I am a listing agent. I work with sellers, and I have a team of agents that work with me to represent buyers, and I have administrative staff to help me with all of the mundane tasks associated with running a successful real estate company. And so it got me to thinking, what is it that I would want out of a listing agent? Let's just pretend for a second that I'm not a real estate agent. What would I want out of that listing agent if I'm going to sell my house? And because I've been around for a long time. I've been in the top 1% of agents here since 2009, and I get a lot of referral business, not just from my current and past clients, but I get referrals from other people within the industry, home inspectors, lenders, so on and so forth. Bill, you referred your neighbor to me, and I sold his house in like 3 days, which I know that you appreciated.
I did. Yes.
But it just got me to thinking, what is it that would be requirements for me if I were going to hire a listing agent? And we talk about this a lot on this show because obviously I'm passionate about real estate. I'm passionate about working with people and about the market and about staying up to date with trends and offering value and being fair, honest, running my business with integrity, so on and so forth. So here is my top 10 list of things that I would require in order to work with a real estate agent to sell my house. Number 1, communication. I know that for me personally, when I work with people, I have a communication guarantee in my listing agreement, and it very simply states that I will communicate with you once per week from the time we list until the time we sell. And if I don't, and if you're not happy with my communication, you can fire me, no questions asked. And so if I'm a seller, I know that you're busy. I know that as a real estate agent, you wear a lot of hats. Personally, that's why I run a team, is so that I can remain focused on working with my sellers to market them, to negotiate contracts, to find new business, to find buyers for my sellers, so on and so forth. But I just want consistent and relevant communication. I want the listing agent to be systematic about it. I want the information to be something I can do something with. Tell me what's going on in the market. Tell me how many showings we had. Tell me what the feedback was from those showings, and give me your opinion on why we didn't receive an offer. One of the music to my ears as a real estate agent is when people ask me, Brian, what do we need to do? Because that tells me that they trust me enough to just give them my opinion on, hey, if we do these things, we will likely sell. Communication, number 1, first and foremost.
Oh, communication, absolutely. I mean, for me, the first conversation with every customer that I talk to, there is this sentence. Communication is so important for us to have a successful transaction. Can I have your permission to include your realtor in all of our correspondence as we go through this process? I've never had a customer say no. And that, communication.
That's a great point. Again, we're taking calls in the studio. 843-556-1250 is the number here. If you have something that you feel is important to you in working with a listing agent or just a real estate agent in general, or if you have just some general knowledge questions, feel free to give us a call. We are here. We'd love to speak with you. 843-556-1250. And again, you can reach me personally if you want to discuss something in confidence, considering buying, selling, investing in real estate. 843-345-1273. Or just go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. So here's number 2 on my list, availability. Pick up the phone or call me back in a timely manner. Save my number in your phone. Don't be that type of person that, we're doing a deal together, and every time I call, hello, who's this? I'm your client. Do me the respect of saving my number in your phone. The same thing goes for me when I'm a real estate agent. When I'm working with a buyer or a seller, I appreciate that mutual respect. If I'm calling you, it's because I have something important to share with you. As a real estate agent, be available. And I don't necessarily expect to reach you 24/7, but in today's day and age, there is no excuse for not being able to respond to a quick text or an email. You should be able to respond to an email in an hour. At least I do. That's just me. Number 3 is transparency. Teach me on how you approached getting to a number that you think my home will sell for. Walk me through the process of assigning a value to my house. Do not just come to my listing presentation with one sheet of addresses with the bedroom, bathroom, square footage, sales price, and price per square foot. Yeah. Do not do that. If I'm the seller, you will not get my listing because it very clearly tells me that you do not understand how to price a property.
Well, I'm glad I'm never going to have to be the listing agent for one of your listings, trying to sell one of your homes, Brian.
Well, it's, you know what? I expect professionalism. And I expect that if I'm going to pay a real estate agent a very large sum of money, that they are going to earn it. And transparency to me is incredibly important. I want to know what you're going to do. I want to know how you arrived at the number that you think my home is going to sell for. I want you to tell me the truth. And that leads me to number 4, which is honesty. I've seen a lot of stuff in this industry. I have seen things that I don't care to share on the air because, frankly, it's almost pathetic when real estate agents blatantly lie to get business. And I know that I'm probably making some real estate agents mad out there, but it happens all the time. Real estate agents lie. Everybody lies. Everybody in business in some form or fashion is going to say, even if it's just a little white lie, everybody does it. And if you're working with me, I expect for you to be honest. I don't necessarily need you to come to my house and say, you're in the top 1% of real estate agents. It's interesting. I was, as it relates to that, I was looking online because there are some other people in our industry that tote themselves as being in the top 1% of agents. And well, of course, being a real estate agent, I have access to what they have sold at any given point in time. And there's a lot of people out there saying they're in the top 1%, and they're not in the top 1%. I'm just saying. So number 4, just be honest. Tell me the truth. Number 5, this might not be on everybody's top 10 list, but it would be for me, and that's dual agency. If I am hiring a listing agent to represent me, and that listing agent, through their marketing, finds a buyer, and now the real estate agent represents both parties to the transaction, I expect for that real estate agent to explain to me how that process is going to work and how they are going to maintain my confidentiality. Dual agency is something that you can very easily mess up in this industry, and it is highly penalized when you do. You have got to be fair and honest. You can't use information against either party. And it's a big deal. Now, there used to be only dual agents. The idea that there were exclusive buyer agents is something that's only been around for 15, maybe 20 years. I think more like 15 years. But if you're marketing my home and you're representing me as a seller, I expect you to explain to me how you are also going to represent that buyer and not compromise me. That's number 5. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the other half of this list. Again, we are in the studio taking your calls, 843-556-1250. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Again, connect with me, 843-345-1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Thanks again for joining me this morning. We are taking calls live this morning. 843-556-1250 is the number here in the studio, 843-556-1250. Again, I am joined by Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage, so if you have any mortgage-related questions, please call in. If you'd like to reach me personally, please call 843-345-1273 or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, and you can learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. We're talking about a list that if I were going to sell my personal property, this would be my top 10 list of requirements for the listing agent that I hire. We've been through the first 5: communication, availability, transparency, honesty, and then number 5 was dual agency. Number 6 is accountability. And this is very, very important. We all make mistakes, and sometimes those oversights cost you money in the end. And I see agents make mistakes all the time in this business that ultimately my clients and I capitalize on. If I see a contract that's poorly written and it's in our favor, sorry, but we're going to take advantage of that. We're going to exploit that because at the end of the day, my client hired me to do the best job possible to get them the highest price, sell in the fastest amount of time, and for the least amount of stress. So if I see some sort of mistake on a contract that the other party to the transaction made, yeah, you better believe we're taking advantage of that because it all adds up in the end. And again, nobody is perfect, but when you make a mistake, own it, fix it, and then move forward. And when you apologize to somebody, first of all, I never say I'm sorry. I always say I apologize because it's more sincere. But when you apologize to someone for making a mistake, You are saying, I acknowledge that I made a mistake. I apologize for it. I will fix it. And I ask that from this point forward, we continue to work together with this issue behind us. I want people to be accountable to their actions. I want them to do what they say they're going to do. And that is the biggest reason why I have that 59-day home sale guarantee. Because there are so many real estate agents out there that will say things to clients to get their business. And then at some point in the future, once they've established a relationship and a little bit of trust, that's when the real estate agent kind of takes that turn and they say, all right, well, we need to start reducing the price. Basically, they know that the first 30 to 60 days are going to be spent telling you what you want to hear, making you feel good about it. And then at some point, once your guard is down, they're going to start having you drop the price. It happens all the time. That is the tactic for some real estate agents. It happens. And so that's why I have that 59-day home sale guarantee. I don't really have an interest in taking a listing that I don't think I can sell. And I'm certainly not going to sit across the table from a seller and say, here's the market, here's our plan, here's what we can accomplish, and have it not be something that I can live up to. Number 7, professionalism. I expect people to go the extra mile. I expect people to take the time to type up a contract so that it's legible. I expect agents to work on language in a contract that makes sense, that I don't have to go back and rewrite, so that at some point in the future we avoid some sort of legal issue because the contract was written in a sloppy manner. I hate having to rewrite contracts, but I do it because it's for the protection of my client. And it should be done by the other real estate agent, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know. Number 8, confidentiality. This is so important. You would be shocked at the number of agents in this business that will reveal the motivation of their seller. They'll tell other agents that the seller will accept less. They will even go so far sometimes as to negotiate for sellers without even talking with them. And one of the oldest tricks in the book is when a real estate agent calls up another real estate agent and they say, hey, I don't want to waste anybody's time, but this is how much my buyer can afford, and we're thinking about making this offer, and I know it's less than what you're asking, but you think your seller would go for that? And like 99 times out of 100, the real estate agent's going to say, yeah, I think we could probably work something out. And that's kind of the canned answer. But the bottom line is that the seller is the only person in the transaction that can make any sort of decision on whether or not they are going to choose to negotiate an offer less than what they are asking. And when real estate agents say that their seller is going to take less, they are breaching the confidentiality agreement in their listing agreement.
How would you answer that question, Brian?
I would say make an offer and we'll find out.
That's what I thought you'd say.
Number 9, marketing. If you are a listing agent, you better know your stuff if you're going to work with me to market your house or to market my house. Marketing is something that I focus on so much. It's something that I have over several years spent a lot of money on to figure out what works, figure out what doesn't work. And so if you're a listing agent and you're going to come to me and talk about marketing, you better impress me with your knowledge, because it's one of the things in this industry that most agents don't understand. And the ones that do are the ones that are really successful. And I am proud to say with confidence that I understand how to market properties for sale. I understand what buyers want. I know where they are. I know how to find them. And I know how to create activity on a house. Last thing is results. Show me that you have a track record of getting the job done. I don't necessarily need for you to have sold hundreds or thousands of homes, but I do want to see that you have been able to lay out a plan, execute it, and do that time and time again. In other words, it shows me that you're not just here to name every marketing tactic under the sky and only do half of it. I want to see consistency. So that's my top 10 list.
I think it's interesting that your top 10 list is really dominated by the character traits of the individual. You know, rather than the last, marketing and results is really process driven, but what's most important to you is the individual and the type of person that's going to be representing you. Very, very important to me. It's the only way to run a sustainable business over time is by doing the things you say you're going to do and by being the type of agent that people can trust, because this is a big deal when you buy or sell a house. Anyways, we're out of time. If you'd like to connect with me personally, again, give me a call, 843-345-2345.
1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. And Bill, your cell phone number is
843-300-7870, but call Brian. He'll get you in touch with me.
This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Thanks for tuning in.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.